18 years prior, her young child was taken from the daycare, fracturing her existence and robbing her of the most cherished aspect of her life. Yet, on a seemingly ordinary day, she flips through the pages of a fashion magazine and encounters something utterly astonishing. Clara Maran stood amidst the towering bookshelves of Asheville Public Library, inhaling the comforting aroma of paper and binding glue as she diligently returned books to their rightful places. At 45, her light brown hair bore strands of silver, yet her hands continued to move with the same practiced precision they had for the past 2 decades. The library stood as her refuge, an unwavering ally amidst the trials of her most harrowing journey. As she carefully placed a tattered edition of To Kill a Mockingbird back onto its shelf, a flicker of motion at the library entrance drew her gaze. A young mother, likely in her late 20s, maneuvered through the door, deftly balancing a shopping bag while holding the hand of a toddler. The tiny girl, barely 2 years of age, sprang with every step, her golden pigtails swaying like pendulums in motion. "Pardon me," the mother said, making her way to Clara's desk. "Could you direct me to the section for children?" Clara offered a gentle smile. "Certainly. Just pass through that archway, and you'll find it to your left. We just received some new picture books yesterday," she said. "Thank you," the mother replied, gently tugging at her daughter's hand. Yet, the toddler had a different agenda in mind. Her delicate fingers stretched toward a vibrant array of bookmarks, causing a cascade of them to tumble to the ground. "Sophie, no touching," the mother admonished softly, bending down to gather the strewn bookmarks. "It's perfectly fine," Clara chuckled, dismissing the mother's flustered apology with a wave of her hand. "That's what they're there for, to grab attention." The little girl's eyes sparkled as they met Clara's, and she flashed a toothy grin that ensnared Clara's heart in a nostalgic embrace. That smile so unrestrained, so eager to explore all that life presented, reminiscent of Ella's own. As the mother and daughter ventured into the children's section, Clara's well-rehearsed smile wavered. 18 years had slipped by, yet instances like this still hurled her back to that fateful day with piercing vividness. The call she had overlooked while organizing the shelves in the library's basement, the 3 voicemails from Little Acorn's daycare that went unnoticed as her phone lay hidden in her purse, the police cars already stationed outside upon her arrival for pickup, their lights creating foreboding red and blue shadows on the playground equipment. "There must be some mistake," she insisted to the officer who came toward her. "I'm just here to pick up my daughter Ella Maran," the heaviness of his hand resting on her shoulder, the tender manner in which he invited her inside. The security footage revealed to her later that week a reliable staff member, Maurice Pledger, guiding Ella by the hand toward the playground gate, surveying the area, then swiftly ushering the child into a waiting car. For months, the search enveloped every aspect of their lives. Clara's marriage could not withstand the pressure. Before the year came to a close, her husband David departed, unable to endure the weight of a home saturated with echoes of their lost child. Yet Clara stood resolute in her decision to remain in Asheville. What if Ella, against all odds, returned? What if a significant development emerged in the investigation? 2 weeks following the abduction, the police discovered Maurice's lifeless body, suspended from a tree in the depths of Pisgah National Forest. Suicide, they whispered. Guilt, they conjectured. Yet, no trace of Ella remained. The case grew colder with each passing year, despite Clara's fervent efforts to keep it alive. Ella's distinctive port wine birthmark, a violet-hued patch around her left eye shaped like a lotus blossom, appeared in every missing child report, every news article, every flyer Clara affixed to telephone poles until they crumbled under the weight of time and the elements. "Clara?" The voice snapped her back to the present. Sarah, her colleague, regarded her with a hint of worry. "Are you all right? You've been gazing at that shelf for 5 minutes." Clara blinked quickly, as if awakening from a trance. "I'm fine, just reminiscing." Sarah's expression softened with comprehension. After 15 years of collaboration, she understood the significance of those moments of quiet reflection. Occasionally, the unexpected warmth of others would still take her by surprise, despite the passage of time. In the back room, cardboard boxes stood arranged with precision beside the receiving desk. Clara retrieved a box cutter from the drawer and, with a sense of purpose, began to slice open the first package, her thoughts finding solace in the familiarity of her tasks. Inside were the monthly magazine subscriptions, The Atlantic, National Geographic, and several glossy fashion publications that had surprisingly captivated their patrons. Clara lifted the stack, poised to log them into the system, when the top magazine halted her hand mid-air. Vogue. On the cover, a young woman with striking eyes gazed back at her, adorned with a unique violet birthmark encircling her left eye, resembling a delicate lotus blossom. The scene unfolded against a sun-drenched farm, where the model wore an off-the-shoulder red blouse, a patterned scarf elegantly tied over her head, and denim jeans, defying the conventional image of a fashion model. Boldly, the headline proclaimed, "The New Elegance." Clara's knees gave way beneath her. She clutched the edge of the desk for support, her other hand instinctively rising to cover her mouth, a sound that was a blend of a gasp and a sob slipping through her lips. The face before her was transformed, marked by maturity. The innocence of childhood had yielded to the sharp contours of defined cheekbones and a resolute jawline. Yet Clara would identify that birthmark without hesitation. She had run her finger over it innumerable times while lulling Ella into slumber. She had recounted its details to police officers, sketch artists, and anyone willing to lend an ear. After 18 years of dead ends and fading hope, Clara Maran found herself gazing at her daughter. With trembling hands she opened the magazine, the crisp pages crackling beneath her fingertips. The cover shot had drawn her in, but it was the editorial spread within that sent her heart racing against her ribcage like a bird desperate for freedom. She discovered the feature article on page 32, titled, "A Visual Ode to the Hands and Hearts That Keep America Growing." The photographs were breathtaking, capturing candid moments of farm life throughout rural America, each image brimming with a sincerity seldom found in high-fashion publications. And there she was once more. Clara, the young woman thought to be Ella, graced a full-page photograph, glancing back at the camera with an air of authenticity. In contrast to the other models clad in meticulously arranged farm attire, this image exuded a sense of spontaneity. Here the woman was truly engaged in her work, captured in a fleeting moment of stillness. The sunlight danced upon her light brown hair, casting a glow on strands of honey gold that Clara recognized from her own reflection. And there, unmistakable even in profile, was the birthmark. Clara's gaze flicked to the caption beneath the photo. Emmy Wells, 20, at Kessler Farm in rural Appalachia. Emmy Wells, not Ella Maran. Yet the ages aligned. Ella would be 20 now, having been just shy of 2 when she vanished 18 years prior. Taking a deep breath to steady her nerves, Clara commenced reading the interview excerpt that accompanied the photographs. "What is your name?" "Emmy Wells, Ma." "That is a lovely name. Thank you. My mama says I was born with dirt in my veins. Why don't you adorn your face like your friends?" "I simply didn't have the time. I was busy hauling hay before you arrived." "Your eyes, there's something truly unique about them." The remainder of the article turned its gaze toward wider agricultural concerns, exploring the economic hurdles local farmers encounter in the face of imported goods, the ecological ramifications of sustainable farming practices, and the resurgence of traditional agricultural techniques among the youth. Yet, Clara scarcely absorbed these aspects. Her thoughts were anchored on the young woman bearing her daughter's birthmark, her daughter's age, and a certain quality in her demeanor that echoed David, an unspoken resolve, a poised resilience. As the article drew to a close, Clara discovered the information she sought, photography by Lila Dalton. She cast a fleeting glance at the wall clock, noting the time, 2:15 p.m. With urgency, she retrieved her cell phone and swiftly began searching for Detective Gary Holden's number. He had once been the lead investigator on Ella's case, a role that had defined their connection years ago. Despite the passage of time and the silence that had settled between them, she still held on to his number. When she dialed, the call was met with the cold finality of voicemail. Gary's familiar voice urged her to leave a message, yet Clara chose to disconnect instead. This was not a matter to be conveyed through the impersonal medium of voicemail. The magazine she clutched felt imbued with significance, its urgency compelling her to act without delay. With a resolute decision, Clara gathered her purse and the magazine, then hurried to the front desk where Sarah was assisting an elderly patron. "Sarah, I must go now." Clara's voice trembled, her eyes wide with a tumult of unspoken feelings. Sarah glanced at Clara's face, then at the magazine held tightly in her white-knuckled grasp. "What's going on?" Clara turned the magazine around to reveal the cover. "I believe I've found her, Sarah. I think I've found Ella." Sarah's hand shot to her mouth as the birthmark registered in her mind. The entire library community was aware of Clara's missing daughter. Countless individuals had joined forces to spread flyers during those initial, heart-wrenching years. "Oh, go," Sarah said without hesitation. I will cover your shift. Do you need someone to accompany you? No, I need to go to the police station. Present this to them. Clara was retreating toward the door, as though the magazine might disappear if she lingered any longer. Keep us posted on what unfolds, Sarah called after her, and Clara, she paused, then gave a tentative smile. Best of luck. The other staff members glanced up from their duties, sensing the stir. Marty from reference made his way over, trailed by Diane from circulation. As Clara caught sight of the magazine, a whirlwind of encouraging remarks and optimistic sentiments enveloped her on her journey toward the exit. In the parking lot, she settled into the driver's seat of her weathered Honda Civic, the magazine resting gently on the passenger seat beside her. For a fleeting moment she remained still, hands clutching the steering wheel, urging herself to take a breath. After 18 years of chasing false leads and enduring disappointments, she had learned to protect her hope with great caution. Yet the birthmark, so distinctive, could not simply be a coincidence. It was too unique, too perfectly aligned with Ella's. Clara stepped into the police station, the air thick with the scent of paperwork and urgency. Approaching the officer stationed at the front desk, she presented her inquiry, the magazine held firmly in her grasp, and inquired about the whereabouts of Detective Gary Holden. The police consented and requested her to wait. Subsequently, they guided her inside to encounter the detective. Detective Gary Holden appeared to have aged significantly since Clara's last encounter with him. His hair had turned entirely gray, and deep lines etched his face, yet his eyes remained as kind and resolute as she recalled. He had been a young detective when Ella vanished. It had been one of his initial significant cases, and Clara understood he had never really moved on from it. Clara, he said, rising from his desk. It's been a while. Since I found something, she replied without preamble, placing the magazine on his desk. It seems I have stumbled upon Ella. Clara presented him with the magazine, revealing a potential lead. They meticulously compared the photograph to Ella's childhood images, and the lotus-shaped birthmark appeared to match perfectly. The detective swiftly reached out to the fashion magazine agency, inquiring about their latest publication and the photographer, Lila Dalton. With the call on speaker, Clara was able to listen in as well. The magazine agency revealed that they had explored remote farms in rural Appalachia and other time-honored American locales for this month's edition. Lila Dalton captured the essence of farmer families in their everyday lives, far removed from the confines of professional settings. The representative on the phone expressed enthusiasm over the authenticity of the images. Ms. Dalton possesses a remarkable talent for seizing genuine moments, the woman elaborated. The spread has been receiving remarkable feedback. I'm certain it has, Detective Gary remarked. We're actually inquiring about one particular photograph, the young woman featured on the cover, Emmy Wells. Indeed, she was a remarkable discovery. Not a seasoned model by any means, merely a farm girl bearing a most intriguing birthmark. It lends her an air of mystery, wouldn't you agree? Clara covered her mouth with her hand, struggling to hold back tears as the woman spoke nonchalantly about her daughter's unique feature. The detective inquired about the precise location where the photograph of Emmy Wells was captured. It was revealed to be at the Kessler farm, owned by John and Miriam Kessler. The representative indicated that there was no precise location marked on the map, yet they provided the name and coordinates of another farm, suggesting that Kessler Farm lay approximately 10 miles to the north. This revelation, he noted with caution after the call concluded, was sufficient to reignite the investigation. I will assemble a team to head to Kessler Farm without delay. Clara rose, resolve shining in her eyes. I'm going with them. Gary faltered. Clara, in situations such as this, I'm going, Gary, she interjected, her tone brooking no dissent. I've waited 18 years. I refuse to wait another moment. This moment marks the closest we've ever come. After a brief pause, Gary nodded. I comprehend, yet I must first make some arrangements. A court appearance awaits me later today, one I cannot afford to miss. Clara's expression dimmed. You're not coming? She asked, disappointment evident. I can't, he replied, his tone laced with regret. But I will send my best officers, and I promise to join you tomorrow. The crucial task at hand is to determine whether this Emmy Wells is indeed your Ella, and if so, to uncover the circumstances that led her to the Kessler farm. Clara nodded, albeit with hesitation. When can we depart? I can have a team prepared in 30 minutes. 2 officers will accompany you to the farm. Gary paused, resting a hand on her shoulder. Clara, I need you to brace yourself. Though this young woman bears the name Ella, she has been navigating an entirely different existence for the past 18 years. Her memories of you may have faded. Clara swallowed hard. I understand, but she is my daughter. That is what holds significance at this moment. True to her word, within 30 minutes, Clara was introduced to Officers Bennett and Martinez, who would be escorting her to the Kessler farm. I'd prefer to follow in my own car, Clara informed them. I have some of Ella's childhood belongings in the trunk, things I've kept just in case. The officers shared a glance, yet ultimately acquiesced to her request. As Clara made her way to the parking lot, her heart raced, a tumultuous blend of hope and trepidation coursing through her veins. After nearly 20 years of void, she was at last embarking on the journey to reunite with her daughter, a daughter who may not even realize she was missing. The procession of two vehicles, Clara's Honda Civic following closely behind the marked police cruiser, meandered out of Asheville and into the serene countryside. The paved highways gradually transformed into winding roads that meandered through dense forests and rolling hills during the 2-hour journey. Clara gripped the wheel tightly, each passing mile intensifying the tempest within her. A mix of hope that she would soon see her daughter again, and the dread that Emmy Wells might regard her as a stranger. The afternoon sun hung high in the clear autumn sky. When the GPS finally declared they were nearing their destination, the police car decelerated, veering onto a gravel driveway marked by a time-worn wooden sign that read Kessler Farm Established. The property unfolded impressively, featuring a sprawling farmhouse with a broad front porch, encircled by meticulously kept barns and outbuildings. Fields of crops unfurled into the horizon, while a modest orchard graced the hillside behind the house. This was not a mere struggling family farm. It was a thriving agricultural enterprise. As Clara parked her vehicle behind the police cruiser, a middle-aged couple stepped out from the farmhouse. The man stood tall and broad-shouldered, his weather-beaten face telling tales of decades spent under the open sky. Beside him, the petite woman, her graying hair neatly gathered in a practical bun, wore a wary expression as she watched the police car draw near. Officers Bennett and Martinez approached the couple, badges prominently displayed. Clara lingered at a distance, her heart pounding in her chest as she leaned in to catch the words exchanged. "Mr. and Mrs. Kessler?" Officer Bennett inquired. "Indeed," the man affirmed. "I am John Kessler, and this is my wife Miriam. May I ask what has prompted the police to come all the way out here?" Officer Bennett indicated Clara. "This is Mrs. Clara Maran. She suspects that a young woman captured in a photograph on your property could be her daughter, who vanished 18 years prior." John and Miriam shared a fleeting look that Clara found difficult to decipher. "You must be referring to the magazine folks," Miriam said with caution. A few weeks prior they had graced this place, capturing images for a fashion spread. Officer Martinez specified that they were in search of a young woman named Emmy Wells. The magazine indicated she was present during their photo shoot. John Kessler shook his head slowly, a hint of regret in his eyes. "Emmy doesn't hold a permanent position with us. She was merely lending a hand that day. We rotate workers weekly from neighboring farms, engaging in a practice of labor sharing, you see." Clara stepped forward, her eagerness bubbling to the surface at last. "My daughter bore a unique birthmark encircling her left eye," she remarked, her voice unexpectedly calm as she retrieved a childhood photograph of Ella. "Much like the girl captured in these images, my daughter was taken from her daycare when she was nearly 2 years old." Miriam's expression softened, revealing what seemed to be sincere compassion. "My deepest condolences, Mrs. Maran. I cannot fathom the pain you have endured." She gazed intently at the photograph Clara presented. "The birthmark bears a resemblance, I concede, yet it was merely a coincidence that Emmy was present that day. Since the photo shoot, she has vanished from our sight. Do you have any idea where we might locate her?" Officer Bennett inquired. John stroked his beard in contemplation. "If I recall correctly, she hails from Rowan's farm. He's the one who provides us with day laborers when we find ourselves in need of additional help." "Rowan," Clara repeated. "Do you have his full name and address?" John shook his head. "Oh, just Rowan. It's a familial setup, a tradition that has persisted since my father's era. Yet, I possess his number." He retrieved a modest notebook from his pocket, tearing out a page and hastily inscribing a number upon it. "I'm not quite sure where his place is located. I've never visited it myself. I've heard it's somewhere up in the mountains, rather secluded." Officer Martinez has taken the document. "Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Would you mind if we took a moment to explore your property, just to ensure everything is in order?" The Kesslers paused, sharing yet another of those inscrutable looks. After a moment, John relented, his voice tinged with hesitation. "I suppose that would be acceptable, though I'm not certain what you hope to uncover." Still, you're free to look around. Thank you, Officer Bennett said. Mrs. Maran, would you like to wait here while we check the premises? Clara nodded, unable to trust her voice. As the officers moved toward the barn, she found herself observing the Kesslers. There was something about their demeanor that unsettled her, a meticulous choice of words, a deliberate awareness in their stances that appeared contradictory to their amiable demeanor. Miriam caught her gaze and responded with a constrained smile. Would you care for some water or tea, Mrs. Maran? It's quite a journey from Asheville. No thank you, Clara replied, then paused before continuing. When Emmy was here, did she say anything about her family, her childhood? Not really, Miriam said. She was reserved, kept to herself mostly. But she was a good worker. Very diligent. John nodded in agreement. Farm kids usually are, brought up with a strong work ethic. 20 minutes later the officers returned, their expressions unreadable. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. and Mrs. Kessler, Officer Martinez said, his voice steady and reassuring. Everything seems to be in order. The group made their way back to the vehicles, where Officer Bennett took a moment to call the station, providing Rowan's phone number and asking for any information they could uncover. Clara listened intently as Bennett detailed the situation, her anticipation growing as the dispatcher began to search their database for answers. After several minutes, Bennett concluded the call, his expression darkening. He relayed to Clara and his partner that the number was absent from all their systems, and there was no cellular service linked to it in any of the nearby counties. If this Rowan resides as remotely as the Kesslers indicate, he could very well be beyond the reach of standard coverage areas. To what does that mean? Clara asked, her heart sinking. How do we find him? Pawasantin, we'll try calling the number directly, Martinez suggested, dialing on his phone. After several moments he shook his head. No connection. Either the number is incorrect, or he's somewhere with no service. Clara cast a fleeting look at her watch. The hands were creeping toward 4 in the afternoon. The autumn days were dwindling, and soon darkness would envelop the world outside. What now? She inquired, struggling to mask the urgency in her tone. Bennett let out a weary sigh. Without a precise destination, we cannot simply venture into the mountains in search of this farm. I believe our most prudent course of action is to head back to Asheville, collect more resources, and begin anew in the morning. Detective Holden will be available then, and he may offer further insights or connections. Clara felt a surge of protest rising within her, a fervent desire to urge them to persist in their search. Yet the rational side of her mind acknowledged the truth in their words. Without a definitive path to follow, they risked squandering precious hours navigating the desolate mountain roads, only to uncover nothing. With a reluctant nod she acquiesced, but firmly declared, I'm not heading all the way back to Asheville tonight. I'll find a local place to stay, a motel or something, so we can set out early in the morning. The officers acknowledged with a nod. That makes sense, Martinez remarked. We'll head back to the station and sync up with Detective Holden for tomorrow morning. As they went their separate ways, Clara lingered in her car, gazing at the Kessler farmhouse reflected in her rearview mirror. Something in the meticulously calculated responses of John and Miriam stirred a sense of unease within her. Their politeness, even their sympathy, felt tinged with an underlying caution that seemed incongruous for individuals with no secrets to conceal. Taking a deep breath, Clara ignited her engine. She was nearer to discovering Ella than she had been in 18 long years. One more night wouldn't shatter her resolve, not after all this time. The waning afternoon light stretched shadows across the rural expanse as Clara drove away from the Kessler farm. Her thoughts surged with a torrent of unanswered questions, her feelings swinging between hope and frustration. After a drive of roughly 20 minutes, she caught sight of a humble roadside establishment, adorned with a flickering neon sign. Pine Ridge Motel, vacancy. The motel stood as a modest, single-story structure, housing perhaps a dozen rooms. Clara pulled up in front of the office and emerged from her car, stretching her weary limbs after a long day on the road. Inside, a middle-aged woman with vibrant bottle-red hair and reading glasses resting on her nose glanced up from a well-worn paperback. "Help you?" she inquired, placing her book down gently. "I need a room for the night," Clara responded. Just one person. $29 includes cable TV and hot water," the woman stated, sliding a registration card across the desk. "I'm Dottie, by the way. I own the place." Clara completed the form and handed over her cash. While Dottie handled the payment, Clara's gaze drifted to a flyer pinned to the bulletin board, showcasing local attractions. One particular image captivated her. a charming building adorned with strings of lights that danced across a wooden deck. "What's that place?" she inquired, gesturing toward the flyer. Dottie cast a sidelong glance. "Ah, that's Miller's Tavern," she remarked, "a well-known haunt in these parts, situated just across the road, in fact." She gestured toward the window, where Clara's gaze fell upon a more substantial structure on the far side of the highway. They offer delightful cuisine and occasionally feature live music. "I believe tonight is dedicated to comedy, which consistently attracts a lively audience." Clara took the room key, her thoughts racing with possibilities. "Does it get crowded? With the locals, I wonder." "Indeed it does, particularly on nights when events are happening. Farmers, tradespeople, and all the inhabitants of this region converge there. It stands as the sole source of entertainment for 20 miles in any direction." Dottie regarded Clara with a fresh sense of intrigue. "And you're not from around here, are you?" "Oh no, I'm from Asheville. I'm actually looking for someone." Clara hesitated for a moment, then revealed the magazine she had meticulously kept, showcasing the cover with Emmy's image. "Have you ever encountered this young woman? She may be known as Emmy Wells." Dottie narrowed her eyes at the page, then shook her head. "I can't say I have. She was a pretty girl indeed. That birthmark was quite striking." Clara felt her hopes wane just a bit. "What of a man called Rowan? Allegedly, he possesses a farm nestled somewhere in the mountains. I believe I have heard of him." Yet once more Dottie shook her head. "Apologies, dear. There are many farmers in this area, and I can't be sure." She returned Clara's magazine with a gentle gesture. "However, as I mentioned, the tavern attracts all the locals. If you seek information, that's your most promising option." "Thank you," Clara said, tucking her phone away. "I plan to head there this evening." My roommate Dottie handed me a key attached to a plastic tag. "It's at the end of the row, right next to the ice machine. Checkouts are scheduled for 11 tomorrow." Clara expressed her gratitude once more and withdrew to her room. Following a swift shower to wash away the day's stress, she bided her time until the event's commencement before making her way to the tavern. If local insight could guide her to the elusive Rowan, and perhaps to Emmy, she couldn't afford to let this opportunity slip away. Miller's Tavern was precisely as Clara had envisioned a rustic country establishment would be. Wooden walls decorated with vintage farming tools and taxidermy, mismatched tables and chairs dispersed throughout the room, and a lengthy bar extending along one side. The air hung heavy with the aroma of fried delicacies, the sharp scent of beer, and the lingering essence of cigarette smoke that had woven itself into the very fibers of the wood over the years. Even on a weeknight, the establishment thrived with life. At the distant end of the room, a modest stage showcased a young man clad in a flannel shirt and sporting a beard, skillfully weaving humor that resonated with an eager crowd. Laughter danced through the air as Clara navigated her way to the bar. She spotted an unoccupied stool and took her place, her gaze sweeping across the room. The majority of the patrons were captivated by the comedy show, while others clustered around the expansive wooden tables at the back, immersed in their own dialogues. At the bar, a handful of solitary patrons cradled their drinks, their relaxed demeanor suggesting they were familiar faces. "What can I get you?" a voice inquired. Clara turned to see the bartender gazing at her with anticipation. He was youthful, likely in his early 20s, with dark hair gathered into a modest ponytail, and an effortless smile that hinted at a true passion for his craft. "Just a club soda, please," Clara responded. The bartender acknowledged her request, pouring a glass filled with ice and soda water. He set it down in front of her, tilting his head with a hint of curiosity. "First time at Miller's?" he inquired. Clara nodded in response. "Oh, is it that obvious?" He chuckled, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Oh, small town, you see. I know most of the faces that come through that door." He extended his hand, a gesture of familiarity. "I am Bran Pledger. This is my father's establishment, yet it is I who manages it during the evenings." The name struck Clara with a sudden intensity. Pledger. The very same surname as Maurice, the daycare worker who had taken Ella. But it simply couldn't be. Pledger was not an unusual name, and this young man must have been just a child when Ella vanished. "Clara," she composed herself, returning his handshake. "Clara Maran." "So, Clara Maran," Bran said, leaning slightly against the bar. "What brings you to our little corner of nowhere? We don't get many tourists this time of year." Clara took a sip of her club soda, collecting her thoughts. "I'm searching for someone, actually." "Oh." Bran raised an eyebrow. "Is it someone I might know?" Clara hesitated, then opted for honesty. "My daughter." She was taken from her daycare 18 years ago when she was nearly 2. The words remain lodged in her throat, even after all this time. I never found her. Bran's easy smile vanished, giving way to a look of sincere concern. I'm truly sorry to hear that. That's truly dreadful. I believe I may have a clue, Clara remarked, instinctively reaching for the magazine, only to remember it wasn't in her bag. Oh, my mistake. This mind is aging. I left it in my vehicle, yet there was a youthful woman highlighted in a fashion magazine, bearing my daughter's unique birthmark. The image was captured at a nearby farm, the Kessler farm. Bran adjusted his posture, a hint of curiosity flickering in his eyes. The Kesslers? It was rare for them to step foot in this place. They tend to remain withdrawn. The woman captured in the photograph was known as Emmy Wells, Clara insisted. The Kesslers claimed she was employed as a day worker. As she spoke, Clara observed the subtle changes in Bran's expression, his eyes narrowing slightly, a faint tension in his jaw. My mother worked at a daycare center, he said abruptly, his voice dropping to a softer tone. Before her passing, Clara's heart fluttered with a sudden thrill. Oh, and where did this happen? Asheville, Bran responded. Yet, she left us when I was still a child. After that, my father took on the role of my guardian. He waved his hand in the direction of the tavern, a testament to his hard work. Having constructed this establishment from the ground up, a chill coursed through Clara, a shiver of disbelief. What were the chances of such an uncanny coincidence? Your mother, she began with caution. What was her name? Maurice replied, Maurice Pledger. The name struck Clara with the force of a physical blow. Maurice Pledger, the daycare worker who had taken Ella, the woman whose body had been discovered in the forest 2 weeks following the abduction. Clara fought to maintain a neutral expression as her thoughts spiraled. The police had determined that Maurice had taken his own life, likely out of guilt after selling Ella, as they had been unable to locate the girl alongside him. What? Is everything okay? Bran inquired, his gaze fixed on her, sensing the shift in her demeanor. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Clara replied, a fib slipping from her lips, masking the truth with a facade of fatigue from the drive. She surveyed the bar, her mind racing to organize the chaos within. It was then that her gaze fell upon it, a framed photograph of the woman, nestled among the liquor bottles on the shelf, only partially revealed. Actually, I'm not. Clara took a deep breath. Bran, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice low yet unwavering. Your mother. Bran furrowed his brow. What do you mean? He asked, a hint of confusion in his voice. I recognized her in that photograph. I've seen her face countless times. Clara retrieved her phone, her fingers gliding over the screen until she found an old news article featuring Maurice's photograph. One mother was the daycare worker who took my daughter, she stated. Bran's complexion paled as he shifted his gaze between the phone and Clara. Disbelief etched across his features. Oh no, he said, shaking his head. Aunt Fat can't be right. My mum, she was a good person. Dad always said. The security cameras at Little Acorn's daycare caught her guiding my daughter toward a waiting car, Clara continued, her voice growing more resolute. 2 weeks later, they discovered her body in Pisgah National Forest. The police suspected she took her own life out of guilt. Bran steadied himself against the bar, a tremor of disbelief coursing through him. This can't be happening, he whispered, then raised his voice. Are you certain? Completely certain it was her. Clara nodded. I am sure, Bran, I apologize. He swept a hand across his face, then suddenly pivoted and beckoned to another bartender. Jake, cover for me. Without pausing for a response, he gestured for Clara to join him in a more secluded nook of the tavern. Once settled at an unoccupied table, Bran leaned in, his voice a whisper amidst the ongoing comedy show. And my dad told me Mum died because of debt collectors, he revealed, and said my mum had repaid a man my dad owed money to, but the man killed her anyway, and staged it to look like suicide. He suspended her from a tree. Clara's breath hitched. The official narrative labeled it a suicide, yet lingering questions remained. She paused, then inquired, Did your father ever say anything about a child? About what happened to her? Bran shook his head vigorously. No, never. I was only 5 when Mum passed away. Dad rarely spoke of it. It was too painful for him. His eyes abruptly expanded with understanding. You believe my mother took your daughter to settle my father's debts, and then what? Sold her? That was the police's hypothesis, Clara acknowledged quietly. Yet, they never located Ella. The trail vanished after your mother passed away. Bran fell silent for a considerable time, absorbing the weight of this truth. At last he spoke, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm so sorry for what my family did to yours." Unbeknownst to me, his gaze locked onto Clara's, brimming with authentic regret. "Yet now, the possibility looms that your daughter could be present, this Emmy individual?" Clara gave a subtle nod. "The birthmark is a perfect match, a violet patch encircling the left eye, reminiscent of a lotus blossom, and she fits the age perfectly." The Kesslers had mentioned a name, Rowan, Bran murmured, almost to himself rather than to Clara. In an instant he straightened up. "Rowan is the name of my father." Clara gazed at him, her expression one of disbelief. "Your father is Rowan Pledger." Bran nodded with deliberation. "Indeed, I would recognize his phone number anywhere, but that belongs to the past." He retrieved his phone, revealing the contact entry for Dad. The new number failed to align with the one John Kessler possessed. It was the same number Kessler had provided to the authorities. "But Kesslers lied," Clara murmured. "They claimed ignorance of Rowan's whereabouts, asserting he resided somewhere in the mountains. Yet, if he is indeed your father, and the proprietor of this tavern, when he doesn't live at the tavern," Bran clarified. "T has a place about 20 minutes from here. A modest farm, far from the grandeur of the Kesslers' enterprise, yet sufficient for cultivating a handful of crops and tending to a few animals." He hesitated, a troubled look flickering across his features. "I hardly see him anymore. Not since—" "Since what?" Clara inquired softly. Bran let out a deep sigh. "Ever since I discovered his struggles with gambling. The tavern is thriving now, yet Dad continues to grapple with his problems. I've been making an effort to maintain my distance, concentrating on managing this establishment properly." He locked eyes with Clara, a spark of newfound resolve igniting within him. "I believe it's time for me to pay him a visit, and I think you should join me." Clara's heart raced, a blend of hope and apprehension washing over her. "And you'd do that, even after what I just revealed about your mother?" Bran's voice was resolute. "Especially because of that. If my family played any part in taking your daughter, then I must help set things right." He cast a quick glance at his watch. "It's not too late. We could go now." "Now," Clara echoed, a sudden wave of nervousness washing over her as she realized how swiftly events were unfolding. Bran nodded in agreement. "Jake can manage the bar for the remainder of the night." He fixed his gaze on Clara. "Unless you'd prefer to hold off until morning? Involve the authorities." Clara paused for a moment, then resolutely shook her head. "Oh, number. I've waited 18 years. I refuse to wait another minute." Bran stood resolute, a sense of purpose radiating from him. "I'll tell Jake I'm leaving and then we can go." He gestured toward the back. My car's out there, but—" "I'll follow in my car," Clara interjected, her voice steady. "There are a few items there, photographs and some of Ella's belongings that I've preserved. They could prove useful." With a subtle nod, Bran departed to relay the news to his co-worker, leaving Clara to savor her drink, her thoughts swirling with potential outcomes. Could it be that she was on the brink of uncovering Ella's whereabouts after all this time? And what part had Rowan Pledger played in the mystery of her disappearance? As night enveloped the rural expanse, Clara trailed Bran's pickup truck along the serpentine back roads. Her headlights flickered across the reflective eyes of wildlife peering from the shadows, while the moon bathed the undulating countryside in a hauntingly beautiful light. As Clara navigated the unyielding stretch of road, urgency propelled her fingers to dance across her phone, sending a message to Detective Holden. She conveyed her growing conviction that she was nearing the discovery of her daughter, sharing her precise location for good measure. Aware of the unreliable reception that plagued these remote areas, she clung to the hope that her words would reach him. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened, her thoughts swirling with Bran's revelations about his parents, echoing in her mind like a haunting refrain. If Rowan Pledger was truly the enigmatic figure referenced by the Kesslers, and if he was indeed Maurice's spouse, the web of connections was beginning to unravel, revealing a more unsettling picture. Yet, one detail lingered in her mind. John Kessler had asserted that Rowan resided in the mountains, while Bran's directions led them through the expanse of flat farmland. Either the Kesslers had been intentionally deceptive, or they were referencing a different Rowan altogether. After roughly 20 minutes of travel, Bran's pickup decelerated, veering onto a slender dirt road signaled solely by a time-worn mailbox. Clara trailed behind with care, her sedan jolting over the rugged terrain. As they approached the house, Clara's gaze fell upon a vehicle, a vintage sedan, emerging from the driveway ahead. It seemed Bran had spotted it too, for he kept his pickup a respectful distance behind. suggesting that the sedan belonged to Rowan. The roads began to constrict, the trees closing in around them, creating a more intimate, wooded atmosphere. Clara navigated the winding roads with caution, her pace slower than that of Rowan's car. The unfamiliar terrain filled her with apprehension, a worry that her vehicle might suffer on the rugged path. Meanwhile, Bran was resolute, his focus unwavering as he kept his father's car in sight. At last, after what felt like an endless stretch of time, though it was likely just 10 minutes, the car in front of them veered into a clearing. As Clara trailed behind Bran's truck into the expansive landscape, her eyes fell upon a quaint farmhouse accompanied by several outbuildings. The property, though modest in comparison to the Kesslers' grand operation, exuded a sense of care and upkeep. A small vegetable garden glimmered softly in the moonlight, while a fenced pasture revealed a few goats grazing peacefully. Nearby, Rowan's car was parked in a disordered fashion, the driver's door left ajar, hinting at a hurried departure. Bran pulled up beside it, while Clara parked a short distance away. As she stepped out of her car, Clara caught the sound of Bran's voice calling out to his father. "Dad, what are you doing at the farm this late?" "I went by your house and saw you leaving." Rowan Pledger leaned against his car, a tall figure with dark hair, now laced with gray, mirroring that of his son. His weathered face bore the marks of confusion and fatigue as he shifted his gaze between Bran and Clara. "Bran, what are you doing here?" he inquired, his voice resonating with a deep, gruff timbre. "And who is this woman?" Bran stepped closer to his father, his body rigid with tension. "This is Clara Maran, Dad. She arrived at the tavern in search of her daughter, a daughter who was taken from her 18 years ago by Mom." Rowan's expression changed, a brief spark of understanding swiftly concealed by bewilderment. "What are you saying? Your mother never abducted anyone." "She did, Dad," Bran replied, his voice strained with feeling. "Clara possesses undeniable evidence, security camera footage from the daycare where her mother was employed. It captured the moment she took Clara's daughter, a sweet little girl named Ella." Rowan's gaze flickered between Clara and his son, a mix of concern and realization in his eyes. "This is absurd. What possessed you to bring this woman here, hurling such accusations in the dead of night?" Clara advanced, her heart racing yet her voice unwavering. "Mr. Pledger, I have no intention of stirring up conflict. I am in search of my daughter." The Kesslers spoke of an individual named Rowan, who coordinates day workers for their farm, and provided me with your number. "I've been attempting to contact you, but have been unable to connect." Your son remarked that it was one of the old lines. A delicate change swept over Rowan's demeanor at the mention of the Kesslers. His shoulders tightened, and his expression grew resolute. "Those rich fools," he muttered, almost to himself, then raised his voice. "Oh look, I don't know what the Kesslers told you, but—" Before he could complete his thought, the front door of the farmhouse swung open, and a young woman emerged onto the porch. "Baran," she called out. "What's happening out there? Why didn't you come inside?" The voice belonged to a young woman Clara couldn't quite discern in the shadows, but her silhouette was unmistakable, tall and slender. Her hair cascaded past her shoulders, and Clara felt her heart skip a beat. Could it be? Yet Rowan swiftly positioned himself to block any glimpse of the porch. "There's no need for concern," he reassured. "Just a few unanticipated guests. Head back inside, I'll join you shortly." The figure lingered on the porch, caught in a moment of uncertainty, yet undeniably intrigued by the disturbances of the night. "Is that Emmy?" Clara inquired, her voice a mere breath. "Emmy Wells?" A shadow crossed Rowan's features. "You must go, both of you, immediately." Bran moved closer to his father. "Dad, what's happening? Who is that woman? And why are Mum and Dad sending people to you regarding day workers?" The tension could have lingered, but the young woman on the porch seemed determined to uncover the truth herself. She made her way down the steps, approaching the gathering, her face slowly emerging in the mingling light of the porch and the car's headlights. "What's happening?" she inquired, glancing between the three adults, a look of confusion etched on her features. It was then that Clara noticed it. The unique violet birthmark encircling the young woman's left eye resembled a lotus blossom, mirroring Ella's perfectly. "Oh my God!" Clara gasped, her legs feeling suddenly weak. The young woman, Emmy, regarded Clara with a blend of curiosity and caution. "Who are you?" Clara inched closer, a deep longing to rush to the young woman and envelop her in an embrace. Yet she held back, sensing the fatigue etched on Emmy's face. "My name is Clara Maran," she spoke softly. "I believe you might be my daughter." Emmy's gaze locked onto Clara, her face shifting from bewilderment to sheer incredulity. What? That's inconceivable. My parents are John and Miriam Kessler. Rowan positioned himself between them, his lined face taut with unease. Now wait a moment, this woman possesses no evidence whatsoever. She's hurling wild accusations. Bran edged closer to Emmy, scrutinizing her face with a fresh intensity. The birthmark, he whispered. It matches Clara's description perfectly. Emmy, with a hint of self-awareness, brushed her fingers against the violet mark encircling her left eye. What about my birthmark? She inquired. Clara, with a deliberate slowness, delved into her purse and retrieved her phone. Her fingers quivered as she navigated to a photo album, presenting the screen to Emmy with a gentle turn. This is my daughter Ella. She was taken from her daycare when she was almost 2 years old, 18 years ago. Emmy cast a hesitant glance at the screen, her eyes growing wide as she beheld the series of photos featuring a toddler bearing an identical birthmark. This doesn't make sense, she said, her voice barely a whisper. And I grew up on the farm. I've always lived with John and Miriam. Rowan let out a dismissive sound. This is absurd. Emmy, return inside. I must converse with these individuals on my own. Emmy paid him no mind, her focus captivated by Clara's phone as she scrolled through an array of childhood photographs. If what you're saying is true, then John and Miriam aren't your parents? Clara finished softly. When Kesslers told me that you were a day worker sent by Rowan, they claimed they barely knew you. Emmy's head jerked up at this, her expression turning steely. What? That's a falsehood. They brought me up. Rowan muttered a curse, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Those Kessler fools, what had possessed them to share his name and number? Bran's gaze shifted to his father, suspicion etching deeper lines into his expression. Dad, what's happening here? What do you know about this? Rowan glanced between the three faces fixed on him, feeling a sense of deflation wash over him. It's a tangled web, really. Uncomplicated, Bran insisted, his voice carrying a sharpness that Clara had never encountered. Rowan swept his fingers through his salt and pepper hair. The Kesslers requested that I keep Emmy here for a few weeks. They mentioned that someone was searching for her, someone perilous, who might attempt to take her away due to an unpaid debt. Debt? Emmy repeated, her face a canvas of confusion. What debt? The farm thrives, as it always has. That's what they told me, Rowan pressed. They mentioned creditors, perilous individuals searching for you. They aimed to protect you until the storm passed. Bran scoffed. And you trusted them? After what transpired with Mom? What of his mother? Emmy inquired, her distress deepening as the revelations unfolded. Clara advanced with a measured step. Maurice Pledger, Bran's mother, was employed at Little Acorns Daycare in Asheville. She was the one who took my daughter, who took you, 18 years past. And you were far too young to recall anything from before, Clara said softly. You weren't even 2 when you vanished. And why? Emmy inquired, her voice trembling just a bit. Why would anyone separate me from my family? Bran shot a glare at his father, filled with accusation. Dad was drowning in gambling debts. The police suspected that Mom had taken Ella to settle them. Then those creditors took Mom's life and staged it as suicide. Emmy leaned against the porch railing, her distress evident. So if I truly am this Ella person, how did I come to be with John and Miriam? Your parents have always longed for children, Rowan explained with hesitation. They were unable to have a child of their own. For years, they had pursued adoption, only to face rejection time and again due to John's history. His past legal troubles cast a long shadow, leading them to seek an alternative path. "And they bought me?" Emmy asked, her voice echoing with disbelief. Rowan nodded slowly. "And from the same people who killed Maurice, yes." The creditors were not merely loan sharks, they dabbled in far more profitable ventures. Emmy hugged herself tightly, a shiver coursing through her despite the warmth of the mild evening. "So everything I believed about myself is a fabrication?" Emmy exclaimed, her voice tinged with rising anger. "Everyone is deceiving everyone." Just as the night threatened to plunge further into chaos, the wail of sirens pierced the air, distant yet drawing closer with alarming speed. "Someone called the police," Rowan said, panic creeping into his voice. "Oh no, this can't be happening. If the Kesslers knew about this, or those traffickers, if they even suspected police involvement, they would come after me." "And no more running," Emmy declared with conviction. "And no more lies." She retrieved her cell phone, revealing the screen. "I reached out to them the moment I caught wind of your argument outside. I seek the truth, every last bit of it. and I stand ready to confront it." The bright lights of police cruisers illuminated the farmyard as multiple officers made their way over. Clara recognized a few familiar faces from earlier that day, yet Officers Bennett and Martinez were conspicuously absent. "What's happening here?" inquired an officer, his hand hovering warily over his holster as he surveyed the scene. Emmy took a step forward. "I reached out to you, identifying myself as Emmy Wells, or so I've been led to believe. Yet this woman," pointing to Clara, "claims I am her daughter, abducted 18 years prior." The officer's gaze sharpened, a flicker of realization crossing his features as he began to piece together the puzzle. "You're the missing person from Asheville? The one with the birthmark?" Emmy nodded, her fingers brushing against the violet mark encircling her eye. Clara extended her hand. Meanwhile, another officer communicated into his radio, verifying that they had found the individual at the center of the recent alert. "When we require everyone to gather at the station to resolve this matter," the first officer declared. Clara moved ahead, urgently informing the nearest officer about the Kesslers and their connection to Emmy's abduction. The officer's demeanor shifted to one of seriousness as he called for backup to apprehend the Kesslers for questioning. "I need everyone to come to the station right away," he announced. "And we have officers securing this property as a potential crime scene." One by one they were directed to different police vehicles. As Clara was guided toward the cruiser, her gaze met Emmy's. The young woman's face revealed a tangled blend of fear, determination, and a flicker of hope. Upon arriving at the station, Clara was ushered into an interview room, a small bare space furnished with a table, 3 chairs, and a glaring camera positioned in one corner. An officer extended a bottle of water to her and conveyed that Detective Holden from Asheville had been notified and was on his way. He mentioned that the detective would arrive in approximately an hour. "In the interim, we would like to gather your account of the events that transpired this evening." Clara recounted every detail, from discovering the magazine to her visit to the Kessler farm, her encounter with Bran at the tavern, and ultimately her confrontation with Rowan at his property. The officer meticulously took notes, interjecting only with clarifying questions, allowing Clara to share her narrative without interruption. Once she concluded, the officer expressed gratitude and departed, leaving Clara to her reflections. Time dragged on, the institutional clock on the wall ticking away each minute, with a soft click that resonated in the stillness of the room. After what seemed like an eternity, though it was likely only 45 minutes, the door swung open once more. A different officer stepped inside, his demeanor more serious than that of his predecessor. "Mrs. Maran, I wanted to bring you up to speed on the situation," he said, settling into the chair opposite her. "We have been conducting separate interviews with the Kesslers and Mr. Pledger, guided by the initial information we've collected. We are confident that there is significant evidence backing your assertion that Emmy Wells is, in fact, your biological daughter, Ella Maran." Clara's heart soared at the revelation, yet the officer pressed on before she could utter a word. "The Kesslers have confessed to acquiring an infant from a third party 18 years prior, asserting that their longing for a child led them to be approached by intermediaries who promised one for a price." "And they never questioned the origins of the child?" Clara inquired, her voice tinged with an unmistakable bitterness. "They asserted that they were informed the child was being relinquished by a mother unable to care for her," the officer elaborated, "yet they confessed to harboring doubts about the authenticity of the situation. This skepticism led them to confine Emmy Ella on their farm, actively discouraging her from establishing connections beyond their reach." Clara shook her head in disbelief. They had taken her entire life, her very identity. The officer confirmed that they would be facing charges. "Rowan Pledger finds himself in a precarious position, offering insights into the trafficking network that ensnared his wife. Although he was seemingly entangled in the web, the full scope of his involvement remains under scrutiny. His willingness to cooperate may hold the promise of leniency, yet he is still confronted with grave charges stemming from his participation in these illicit operations." "What about Maurice Pledger's death?" Clara inquired. For all these years it had been deemed a suicide, but if Rowan's words hold any weight.
"We are reopening that investigation based on Mr.
Pledger's statement," the officer affirmed. "He alleges that the same criminal organization took his wife's life when they feared she might divulge information to the authorities after the abduction attracted considerable media scrutiny." Clara nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of the information. "And, Emmy, what comes next?" The officer's expression softened just a touch. "She's an adult, Mrs. Maran, legally. She has the autonomy to decide where she goes and with whom she forms connections. Yet she has shown a desire to continue the conversation with you. Hope blossomed within Clara's chest. May I see her now? She is still being interviewed, but afterward, yes. The officer stood, adjusting his uniform with a measured precision. Detective Holden is expected to arrive momentarily. He has been informed of the recent developments and will assume control of the case from this point forward. Just as the officer approached the door, Clara called out to him, "Officer, I appreciate all that you've done." He gave a brief nod before departing, leaving her once more with her swirling thoughts and the relentless ticking of the clock. Clara remained in the cramped waiting area of the police station, cradling a paper cup of tepid coffee in her hands, seeking solace rather than sustenance. The institutional lighting threw stark shadows over the aged furniture, yet Clara paid little heed to her environment. Her gaze was locked on the hallway door, anticipating the arrival of Ella. When the door finally creaked open, Clara felt her breath hitch in her throat. Emmy lingered in the doorway, her stance unwavering even as fatigue etched itself across her face. After a brief pause, she approached Clara and settled into the chair beside her. Silence enveloped them for what felt like an eternity. The stillness enveloping them was heavy with 18 years of separation, of paths diverged, of moments forever unshared. At last, Emmy shattered the quiet. "I never imagined I would find myself in a police station at midnight, uncovering the truth that my entire existence has been a fabrication." Though her words carried weight, an unexpected calmness resonated in her voice. "I never thought I'd find you," Clara murmured gently. "After all these years, I'd begun to think it was impossible." Emmy pivoted to confront her, examining Clara's features with meticulous scrutiny. "They are accusing John and Miriam of kidnapping, document forgery, and hindering justice." "I'm sorry," Clara uttered, realizing she genuinely felt the weight of her words. Emmy recognized the truth in their care, the nurturing that shaped her. Yet, she felt the weight of their isolation, the constraints on her freedom, the limitations on her connections. They often insisted it was for her safety, warning her of the perils lurking beyond their sheltered existence. A wry smile flickered across her lips. It seemed the reason had finally revealed itself. Clara paused, then posed the question that had been consuming her thoughts. "How did you find yourself featured in that magazine, especially when they were so meticulous about keeping you under wraps?" Emmy's expression softened just a bit. "That was merely an accident. The photographer, Lila, was capturing images of the neighboring farm when she inadvertently wandered onto our land. I was toiling in the fields when she caught sight of me." A subtle, proud smile graced her lips. She remarked that my birthmark was striking, unique, and that it rendered me photogenic. I returned her smile. John and Miriam seethed with anger in the aftermath, yet the moment had slipped through their fingers. The photos were set to be unveiled. "I'm relieved she got lost," Clara remarked. "That birthmark, it was the unmistakable sign that it was you. I could have identified it in any crowd." Emmy brushed her fingers over the mark, a hint of self-awareness in her gesture. "The Kesslers consistently conveyed to me that it was something to conceal, something to be ashamed of." "It's beautiful," Clara reassured her. "Your father, your biological father, David, referred to it as your lotus mark. He claimed it signified that you were extraordinary." A spark of curiosity ignited on Emmy's face. "My father, he's alive," Clara stated. "We parted ways a few years after your absence. The weight of that loss proved too heavy for our union to withstand. He found love again and relocated to Colorado. Though years have passed since our last conversation, I sense he would be eager to meet you, should you wish to." Emmy nodded slowly, taking in this revelation. "Throughout my life, I've always felt a sense of difference, as if I were somehow out of place. There were aspects of my being that seemed utterly incongruous within the Kessler framework, the manner of my thoughts, the peculiarities that captivated me." She paused, her mind adrift in contemplation. "You possess your father's unwavering resolve," Clara remarked softly, "and his innate kindness. Even as a child, those qualities were evident in you." Emmy turned to her, a newfound intensity in her gaze. "Countless questions swirl in my mind about my past, my identity, and the life I once led. And I'll answer anything I can," Clara assured me. "We have time now." The door to the hallway creaked open once more, revealing the detective, weary yet content. He inclined his head in a gesture of respect towards Clara before turning his attention to them both. "The Kesslers are currently undergoing processing for formal charges," he conveyed. "Rowan Pledger is fully cooperating with our investigation into the trafficking network. His information had the potential to dismantle one of the largest human trafficking operations in the Southeast." "What would become of him?" Emmy inquired. "He'll confront charges for his involvement," Detective Holden clarified. yet his cooperation will be factored into the equation. The absence of his direct involvement in abductions could potentially bolster his defense. The door swung open again, and Brand stepped into the waiting area, his demeanor grave. "When they're letting me go," he announced, moving closer to the group. "They assured me that I bear no responsibility for any of this." He gazed at Emmy, his eyes filled with sincere regret. "I deeply apologize for the harm my family caused yours." Unbeknownst to me, Emmy regarded him intently for a brief moment. "It's not your fault," she said softly. In the innocence of childhood, the event unfolded. Bran offered a grateful nod before shifting his gaze to Clara. It's peculiar to ponder that had he not been at the tavern this evening, the connection might have remained forever undiscovered. Perhaps it wasn't mere coincidence, Clara proposed thoughtfully. Perhaps certain things are destined to converge. The detective cleared his throat, a subtle shift in the air. "We require both of you to return tomorrow for further statements. Detective Holden will also be present, but for now, you are free to leave. Emmy, do you have a place to stay tonight?" Emmy looked at Clara, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. "I'm not ready to return to the farm, not just yet. Not until I've had a chance to sort through everything," Clara suggested softly. "I'll want you could stay with me at the motel if you'd like. We can get another room." As they readied themselves to depart the station, the Kesslers were escorted through the waiting area, their wrists bound in handcuffs. Emmy tensed at the sight of them, while John and Miriam lifted their gazes, their expressions marked by shame and regret. As the officers guided the Kesslers toward processing, Brand stepped forward to Emmy once more. "It's strange," he murmured. 18 years ago, our lives were irrevocably altered, and until today, we remained blissfully unaware." In that instant, a change flickered across Emmy's face, a hesitant acceptance, maybe even the delicate beginnings of trust. Clara gently squeezed her daughter's hand, a silent promise that they had time to unravel everything, bit by bit. She sought permission to embrace her, and as Emmy opened her arms, Clara enveloped not just her daughter but the remarkable young woman she had become, no longer the little girl Ella, but Emmy, a resilient, independent spirit who had navigated her way back through seemingly insurmountable challenges. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would confront them side by side, unearthing what had been lost and crafting something fresh in its stead. The stage of existence had offered them a second act neither had envisioned, one brimming with the potential for healing, comprehension, and a connection that even 18 years apart could not entirely dissolve.